Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us. We're here because to attend this workshop. This is implementing Abriendo Puertas, opening doors to diverse families. My name is Stacy Castañeda. I'm the Director of Learning and Trainings with Abriendo Puertas, opening doors. And I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. She is a wonderful facilitator and trainer, Ms. Julianne Rositas. She is a parent education program manager with Family Path and has how many years experience, Julie? Oh, you are on mute.
Almost 7 years. In January, it will be 7 years. So
wonderful. So she will get us started with the presentation. I do want to disclose that part of this presentation, we were going to have a parent guest attend, but as many of you know, life happens. We had a parent guest who was going to attend. She was not able to. We had a backup and she was not able to, but we have some great interviews that we had that Julie did with diverse families that we will be sharing with you all today. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to use the raise hand function on Zoom, or feel free to enter your question in the chat. Also, if you don't mind, we want to know who's here with us today, so everyone kind of knows, right? We may know you from the registration, but others do not. So if you guys can write your name, your organization, and the state you are located at in the chat, that would be great. Thank you so much. And I love to see the familiar faces with us. Thank you. I'll hand it over to you, Julie.
All right. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Julie Rositas, and I work for Family Paths, and we're out here in Alameda County. Our offices are in Hayward as well as in Oakland. So, and we actually were the first agency to bring Abriendo Puertas to Alameda County, and we did that in 2016, and we've been doing Abriendo Puertas for almost 7 years. And we've actually trained over 40 facilitators across Alameda County. So, and then in the last 2.5 years, we've been providing APOD virtually. All right, so I'm going to get started with everybody, and feel free to ask questions, raise your hand as we move through the presentation. All right, so let me start sharing with you. Can everybody see my screen? All right, so implementing Abriendo Puertas, and I'm going to use the acronym APOD whenever I refer to it, just for the sake of time and the length. So as you can see on the side, this slide says, "Si se puede," yes, we can, and we also have it in Chinese because we have implemented it with a large Chinese population out here in Oakland, California. So just for the learning objectives today, we're going to be talking about what we have found to be best practices in engaging diverse families. And then we're going to explore some of the ideas that helped us to create an environment of trust and honoring the populations that we've been working with over the years. And all the pictures that you see are actual pictures from the trainings that we've had. This was one of our first trainings that we had in one of our Chinese communities. And as you can see, it was a pretty big class. Mostly all of these classes are we've had some really good turnout. So as most of you know, I'm assuming that most of you are facilitators, all of Abriendo Puertas curriculum, each session starts with a popular saying. I'm going to start with a popular saying for the same reason, because it helps set a tone for what we're going to be talking about today, and it helps keep us focused on what it is that we're working towards. And today's saying is diversity and inclusion, which are the real grounds of creativity, must remain at the center of what we do. And for me, that really resonates with today's topic, because diversity does bring a richness, a creativity that's really important as facilitators, as administrators, as we think about how best do we implement a curriculum that was initially designed for one population. How do we make it work for other populations? And I will tell you that it works amazingly well with just about every population we've worked with, given that we understand exactly what the saying says, that we have to be creative, and that needs to be at the center of how we integrate and adapt the APOD program. I will tell you that in the translations, believe are mean the same thing, and they are slightly different in how they're interpreted. And this is something that we're going to talk about. It's really important when we do some of the adaptations and we start doing some of the translation, that you're going to find that some things are going to mean the same thing, but we got to use different words. For example, the Chinese translation here, what that actually says is diversity and inclusion are true foundations of creativity and must stay at the heart of what we do. Notice how it's the same but a little bit different. It uses heart to talk about center. That means the same thing. And the same thing with the Spanish translation. And my point being is that when we did translation, when we translated a lot of our slides and key points, we realized, because we couldn't hire a translator because it was super expensive, how we could best use online translations. And one way was to, well, when we get there, I'm going to share with you how you can use your online Google translators to do your best in translating, so you might not have to hire a translator. My point being that sometimes when we do the translation, there might be a little difference, but it really does mean the same thing. All right. So just a little bit of brief history, and we kind of already talked about this already. We've been providing APOD for about a little over 6 years, actually a lot over 6 years in Alameda County. We've done it in 5 different languages. That just sort of happened organically. We went out there into the community. We found that a lot of populations were encouraged or excited to do something different. And we ended up, believe it or not, probably 60% of all our classes have been in the Asian community with Chinese, Vietnamese speaking populations. So like I said before, we've trained over 40 APOD facilitators who have, believe it or not, except in the Hayward corridor, initially have been providing their classes to the Asian community as well. And then we've been doing virtual classes for about 2.5 years. Again, this is another picture. So one of the most important things, as we all know, as providers, is buy-in. You gotta have passion for the resources and the programs that we provide for the populations we serve. So it's really important that we really get to know our communities. And then to understand our communities in a way and the needs that they have in relationship to what Abriendo Puertas has to offer. That's really key. It's one thing to understand a community's needs, but it's another thing to focus on what does APOD bring that will meet some of those needs. That was really key when we started thinking about how best to incorporate Abriendo Puertas, honoring its foundation as a program for and by Latino families, and asking other populations to welcome it into their communities, and then to welcome their communities into Abriendo Puertas. And understanding their needs, using the topics as a focus is super useful, because most parents understand what it means to be their child's first teacher and their home their first school. Most parents are going to understand the power of words and how it works in their communities. So using those topics as key points when you develop some of your talking points and engaging with parents, using those to focus really does bring all communities together. Does that make sense, everyone? Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Yeah, and it really, really does. That just sort of happened as we try to figure out how best can we reach and invite other communities in. And then we realized initially we had all the tools that we needed. So we took an outline of each topic, and then we invited parents in and asked them how this works for them. And what we found is that despite where everybody came from, everybody pretty much had the same needs built around those topics. So it's really important that you use those topics to help guide you along the way as you try to get buy-in, not only from your staff and your own employees, but the community at large. And then frame your outreach material to those needs. Ask the question, how about literacy. If you find that there's a big population that's really struggling with reading, and for some of our communities, that was a big thing. So we use the power of words as that entry point. That this is what Abriendo Puertas can provide for you. And then we added all the topics. It's okay to introduce, especially when you're getting folks to really want to engage in your program. It's okay to start. You don't have to start with session 1. You can start with another session so that people can buy in. So at one point we used the power of words. And then in our outreach material, we talked about how the power of words could initially help their children and them learn activities and things they can do to help their children read. So use those 10 sessions as your guides. One of the things that is super helpful is while we always honor Abriendo Puertas, opening doors, is really focusing on the term opening doors, period. Because opening doors can mean initially the same thing to an array of populations. With every session that we do, we always ask the question, how did what we learned today and the activities that we engaged in, how did that open doors for your individual families? When we would do that, parents really got the idea that this is for them too, because everything that we talked about opened doors for them, not only individually, but in their communities. So use that term. Opening doors is part of the original program, so use it to help parents understand this is for you too. Does this all make sense? Give me a thumbs up if it's making a lot of sense to you. All right, so, and buy-in always goes if you work for Head Start, go to your parent council meetings, anywhere where parents meet once you start that rolling out process, and talk about the program. Using the tips that I just talked about, try them out, see what works for you, and start getting parents to buy in, because the best way to spread the news about any great resource is word of mouth. At least that's what we have found. And then the bottom line, welcome all household members to attend, period. In a lot of our classes, we have grandmas, we have cousins, whatever dynamic that household is embracing, everybody is welcome, because everybody who's involved in raising that child can attend our classes. That's one way to establish trust, and then for folks to feel welcomed, because a lot of different cultures, I know in my culture, everybody raises everybody's kids. A lot of Asian cultures work the same way. A lot of African American cultures. So inviting everybody to participate in the program is really important. You can even invite folks. One of the things that just sort of organically happened is we always invited everybody who was a part of raising the children 0 to 5. What ended up happening is that we had grandmas that would end up doing childcare for us in the same space. And then we would have younger cousins who might be here from another country to help with food distribution. It just sort of evolved. It became an organic process. And because it was organically came to the surface, driven by the parents themselves, it felt like a more welcoming environment. We have to remember that it's the parents that are going to really drive the success of the program. We're just there to help facilitate a conversation, to introduce topics and let parents their experience make those topics real and authentic to the communities that are in the space. All right, so any questions yet? Anybody ask anything in the chat, Daisy, that we want to talk about?
No, we had one of the participants, Ms. Ivette, she mentioned that she's interested in working with parents of high school students, and at the end, we can ask if anybody has that experience, Ivette. And then we also just had a comment from Maria who said, I love that idea of not having to start with session 1, but using the best means of attracting participants. And that's a great idea.
Yes, it's really important that I think that using the curriculum, a session to get parents engaged, I still think that it might feel better if you start with session one when you teach them, because it does build. However, we have learned, we've only done one session that was a little bit of out of sequence. That did work for this particular population. And initially, we always, when we advertise, we might use a particular topic, and then when the parents come in, they will say, "This is how we are surrounding the topic." So thank you for that comment. All righty, so translation. This is huge. For us, we got a small grant when we first started rolling this out, and it was super expensive to get some trained professional translators. Believe it or not, just for one 10-week session, it was almost $6,000 that they charged us, because we had to do it simultaneously. It doesn't work when you have one person saying something and then somebody saying something right after. But what ended up happening is that what we did is we trained parents, and then we engaged parents from the community, not only to help with the translation of our material, but to be in-class translators. We also developed a translator committee. And believe it or not, that committee not only translates for us, but translates for the needs of the community now, because people know about them. So parents are getting a little, putting a little bit of money in their own pockets, really building their resumes. And now we send other people to them who need translation around other things. But getting folks together who are from the communities you serve and creating some kind of committee, and then getting them to help with the translation, can be really empowering, not only for the agency, but for the parents. And then honoring their time, and their commitment. And then using online translators is another big thing. If you're doing virtual, you can actually use an online translating option, as long as you do a reverse translation to make sure that what you're trying to translate is correct. And what I mean by that is, when you go into Google and if you put use an online translator, you put that in there, and then you translate it to simplified Chinese. Take the simplified Chinese translation and put it back as Chinese, and then translate it to English. When you do it that way, you'll find out the things that are translating correctly, and then you'll find out the things that just don't make sense in another language. Does that make sense to everybody? It really does work. We were able to translate the entire curriculum and create PowerPoints. It took a little bit of time, and then we got parents to evaluate it for us, and we believe it or not, we only had 2 errors in 10 sessions. So that was pretty good. So there's ways that you can use more affordable ways of using translation, but you always remember to do the reverse translation, and then tweak the words so that you get it to mean the same thing. Just like the saying that I showed you, how there was just a little bit of difference, but initially they mean the same thing.
And sorry to interrupt you, but could you put the slides in full screen mode? Participants.
I don't have it in full screen mode.
No, it's cutting off. It's showing the notes on the tab.
Oh shoot, I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Julie.
Wait, hold on. And I'm not even seeing the notes. Hold on. Maybe it's because, tell me if this is better.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So are there any questions about translation? So just to summarize, engage parents from your community to assist with material. Train and engage parents as in-class translators. That's really helpful. Develop a translator community is another idea. And then use your online translator options for the sake of maybe not, it's really expensive to get translators. But if you have the budget, that works too.
And I want to say a comment that we have in the chat from Stella. She said she's an interpreter and translator. Machine translation only goes so far. It's a good idea to have a native speaker review it before using it, since there are nuances that machines cannot find. Goes back to your point of asking, a parent to review it. And We also had a comment from Vicky. She said translation is also engaging facilitators that our parents can relate to. The information delivered sets the tone and builds comfortable environments for sharing and growing. The sense of community is important. Very good point.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll see, like in the general tips, we always have, I don't greet people, my facilitators don't either. We always have somebody from the community be there, even in the online space. They're the greeters, they're the ones, because they actually, whatever, we call them parent ambassador, whatever parent ambassador, they introduce us. They narrate, they moderate the program because it is their program. We're just there to facilitate the information. So yes, thank you for that comment. Setting the tone is really important. All right, just some virtual class general tips. Always be transparent. If you're going to be doing it, it doesn't matter whether you're in person. If it's the first time, let your parents know. Work with me. This is our first time that we're doing this, and your feedback is so important. This is your program. We want it to feel like it's your program. So be transparent. If it's virtual, let them know. You know, this is the first time I'm using Zoom too for this particular reason. Let's work together. Parents always seem to, they'll step up. They are very, very community oriented. At least that's what's been our experience. Always test your content and technology early. If you're in the online space, know the space. If you're doing it in person, whatever technology you're using, if you're using a projector, make sure everything is working. That's so important. And when it doesn't, be transparent and find other ways of doing it. But don't let it shut you down. In your Zoom invites, know that Zoom offers the invitations in at least 9 languages. Send your invitation in the language of the population that you are serving at the time. It's very useful. It really does make a difference on who shows up. That before we realized that you could actually send out the invitation in the speaker's native language, we would get people coming, but it usually was because we would have to call, and then people didn't really realize, oh, we didn't realize that's what that was. And then once we started sending in their native language, it really helped, not only helped us from not having to call everybody, but it made people, it felt more personal for people because it meant we wanted them to understand that we personally are inviting them. And then again, use your Zoom translator options. If you're going to do this online, Zoom does have some translator options that work really well if you learn how to use the options really well, because it can be a disaster at first. We've actually done this with 5 languages in the same space. It took some time to coordinate, but if for those of you who don't know, Zoom does have translator options. You have to have somebody on one end, and then a parent can actually control how much of the English language, and then the translator will be able to speak to them. It's a 2080 situation where I'll be speaking in English, the translator will be, the parent will be hearing it in their language. So if you learn how to use it, it can work really well. And there's a lot of great Google tips online on how to use that option. In one of our last sessions at the end of last year, we did it in 5 languages, and thank God we had experience doing it, and it ended up working out really well. We used 5 parents who knew those 5 languages, and then we managed to be able to do 10 sessions in that form, and it worked really well. And then always getting parent feedback. How was that for you? What did you actually hear? And we always leave some space for folks who want to stay over to give us feedback. It's another thing. We always left a little bumper, and we still do at the end of every session, because sometimes just getting through the curriculum takes the whole 2 hours. And if folks who want to stay over for a feedback session, we'll give them a little, $5 or $10 gift card for their time. So that's always been really useful. Whenever you set up reoccurring sessions in Zoom always works best. However, that one link always gets lost. So sending a reminder is really important. Having those reminders go out on a regular basis typically is helpful, and that's coming from parents. These are the things that parents have given us. This is some of the feedback from them. Thank you for the reminder. Reminders are really helpful. We all get tons of email, and that link is initially will get lost at some point. Having a co-host, it's really hard to do these classes alone. It's doable, but be transparent with the one of the things we do, and most of the facilitators that I work with, my team, they all do it pretty much alone, unless there's a class of 20 or more, but very transparent. And now we just say, is there any volunteers who want to help, read the chat, or, and they, we give them, we honor their time with a gift card, but doing it alone is hard. If you can manage having two people do it, it's much better. In person or online, it just works out better. And if you're doing it in different languages, in person can get a little tricky, but having somebody there who speaks the language is a human, not a machine or just information, is really important. And then if you're doing things online, be creative, use your breakout rooms, use your Zoom polls. One thing that we do to ensure that parents are engaged is the reactions, because some people don't like to be online. They don't want their cameras on. So in order so that we know that they're there and they're present, we always ask little questions in between and letting us know that they're there by using the reaction buttons. Use Google Jamboard, whiteboards. There's tons of free apps out there that can make your programs really engaging. Do a little search. That always keeps people coming. One of the things that's always been really helpful, especially if we don't know a community and we're just getting to know them, is to send out a very short survey to their cell phones, a little Zoom survey monkey, asking them how familiar they are with Zoom, how comfortable, and or whatever it is that you want to ask them. It can always be very helpful for the facilitator, because then you know how to set this up and how much time you actually have to say. You actually have to spend helping people understand your space, your online space. And then, like I said here, spending a few minutes showing parents around the Zoom classroom, you'll know how much time you actually have to do that. We do a very general, but there was a time where we have to build in more time because folks weren't as comfortable with Zoom as they are now. We just recently started creating a Zoom video library that we're going to be, we have a parent advisory board now. And it's not just for Abriendo Puertas, it's for our Abriendo Puertas, our positive parenting, our fatherhood, who come together, and they're gonna help us create videos that we can send to our parents on how to sign up, how to complete the paperwork, how to log into Zoom, how to download it. We know there's a lot of these videos on YouTube, and it just feels more authentic when it's our parents, when they hear it from the people that they're going to be knowing and meeting and greeting, who are going to be greeting them. It just feels better. And that was, again, feedback from the Parent Advisory Board. So we're going to be creating 2-minute tips that when we send the registration forms, that they can actually watch to help them register. So it's another idea. How much time do we have, Daisy?
So we have 5 minutes before we get into some Q&A,
Okay.
we'll get some reflections, and we also gonna integrate within those next 5 minutes the interview.
Okay. So just general tips, everyone. In person or otherwise, always integrate pictures that resemble the parents you are serving. Like this was an Afghan community we were working with. We put all of the posters of each session and then pictures that look like them as well. Having 2 facilitators in the same space, one in English if that's going to be your base language, and then someone who actually speaks their language, even if they're not going to be the original translator. If you're going to hire a translator, then it's 3 people. You, the translator you hire, and then a person who's going to be your parent ambassador to work with parents to help them integrate and learn the activities and the information that can float around and work with parents. That's why the next one is recruiting a parent ambassador. After each 10-week session, we do a follow-up session and we do some feedback. And then we will actually, if there's a parent or parents that we feel would be really great parent ambassadors, then we reach out to them to see what their thoughts are, because it's really always helpful um, to have parent ambassadors in the space. They're going to be your strongest allies. They're the ones that are going to spread the word and bring folks in. Always remember, we need to honor their time too. Providing incentives to stipends is really helpful. We actually have stipends built into some of our grants, so that when we do recruit parent ambassadors, we're able to honor their time. In person, always have food, childcare incentives. We all know that. And if it's a specific population, know what kind of foods they want and bring their food into the space. Providing certificates of participation and attendance has been really helpful for us. Some parents can't go the whole 10 sessions. We honor the time they're there by a certificate of attendance, and then those folks who actually complete the 10 have certificates of completion. And we have it written in their language, in English. We have the Spanish because we want to honor Abriendo Puertas, and then we also have it in their language. So we've actually minimized some of the writing on some of the certificates so that we can have it in another language as well, aside from the Spanish and English of Abriendo Puertas. And then, if you're doing online classes, always adapting activities to include the kids. We did a lot of adaptation where we say, okay, now bring the kids into the space, and we do the activity with the parent and the child. That's been really useful in keeping parents coming to, especially when we were really locked down. Now parents, kids are going back to Head Start, back to school. We don't necessarily have to do that, but just keeping that in mind. If you know that there's going to be, or just as a general statement, if there's any children in the home, bring them into the space. Let's do this activity together. And then always using whatever engagement tools. It's really important in the online space, and getting parents to talk to each other. If nothing else, breakout rooms are super helpful. We always provide gift cards because in person we do potlucks, and virtually we always provide a gift card for graduation. And once we even were able to coordinate, and this was at the end of last year, where everybody got lunch delivered during the last session, and that was pretty amazing. And if you can do it, that's a great way to end it, where everybody gets their food delivered to them. We had everybody got pizzas, and it just happened to work out. So just another idea. So that said, do we have time for the 2 little videos?
Yes, let's squeeze in those at least
Okay.
one video.
So now we're gonna hear.
We'll squeeze in one video, and then we'll also make these available. It's okay with you, Julie,
Okay.
in the slides. So you guys, you have great videos, multiple, but definitely
Okay,
we want
so
to allow some
this
time
is
for Q&A.
okay. So this is in Chinese. It's in English and in Chinese.
Oh, your sound, Julie?
It should have been on. Hold on, let me try it again, just real quick. Can you hear it now?
Hi, this is the open door class that we attend 2017, and it's very good information, and it really opens a lot of new immigrant families, to let them know how to interact with their kids and communicate with them, and it also changed a lot of old set mind. So hello 各位，歡迎嚟我哋嗰個2017年第一次舉辦個開門個課程。呢個課程咧就好好嘅對家庭，佢俾好多知識資料，大家庭可以了解小朋友同埋佢哋嘅成長情況。希望大家會有興趣再上呢堂，因為交通同小朋友係好重要嘅，佢哋幫助佢哋之後嘅日路啦，易啲咯。
All right, so I'm going to stop. All right, so what are we doing? Are we doing Q&A now? Just so you know, she ended up being a parent ambassador.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Lee. Yeah, we want to allow some time. I want to honor everybody's time. I know this workshop is 45 minutes. So we want to allow some time for Q&A. Any questions? I know we did have Ms. Yara Hidalgo who raised her hand earlier. So I want to honor Yara. If you have a question, please feel free to share. And also anyone else, any additional questions?
Oh, no, I had messaged you. I was just going to say about the full screen, but that got taken care of. So we were able to see the slides. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm so sorry for that. I'm actually on 2 screens, and one screen looks just like the presentation, and the other one was supposed to be the presenter view. So thank you for that.
Anyone else has a question, please feel free to use the raise hand function. If there are no questions, I'm interested to hear if somebody might want to share their experience working with we have brief 5 minutes on just their experience implementing Abriendo Puertas to diverse families. I know Julie shared hers and expertise, and I do want to share that. We'll make this slide available, but anyone can share their experience that would be willing.
I can share. I believe, I can't remember what number it was exactly, but it was like with technology, a parent with technology, and I'm not sure what lesson plan it was, the number, but it was really well. It went really well. The parents, they were really grateful what they were learning. They were engaged, and like you said, it's really nice when you feel like they're the ones that are getting the training, the workshop, like running, and it seems like it's like they're the ones taking over, which is, that's what we initially want for them.
Yeah.
To, like, we're just, like you said, we're just, facilitating or just showing the content, but they're the ones that are actually molding it together. So I think that was I really enjoyed that lesson plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for the household members, if like a parent can join, if you're saying that it's okay, like have the grandma and the child, or someone else just related to the child, correct?
Anybody, the way we do it is the invitation goes out to whoever is raising that child who lives in that household. So something like one of the videos was the dad in that family. It was the dad that came, the grandma that came, a cousin that was living here too, and then the mom. So we engage everybody who has direct responsibility of raising the child.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Denise. And we have Ms. Aide who raised her hand.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Daisy. It's so nice to see you. And Julianne, thank you so much for your presentation. I just, I have implemented the Abriendo Puertas last year with high school parents, but I was just wondering if any other people have done it, and just to compare notes and to get the support around that population. I know it might seem like a little late, but it really isn't. A lot of parents need a lot of support in high school also. Thank you.
We have actually done it with the 0 to 17, and it's just about adapting the information, and we always, when you talk about, even brain development, folks still need to know about brain development, and then we take it to the teen level. It does mean sometimes adding a little bit of information and building, but it's super doable. And actually we're doing it. We just kicked off a class yesterday, and the invitation went out 0 to 17. And most of the parents there have children in junior high and high school, because there is a great need out there, because the focus typically is 0 to 5. So good for you. I'm glad that you're doing that.
Is it possible to contact you to see what you're doing and to share information?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I'll put my contact with. Yeah, she'll put it in the chat. Perfect. I want to share a great point that Vicky made. She said, I think that parent ambassadors are great to get buy-in. We have a facilitator who was a previous parent, as she was so excited after her AP facilitator training. She stated she learned so much and she has been doing great and engaging parents as she was in their place years prior. You know, it's amazing to see her give the class. And I think that brings us back to the point that you mentioned, Julie, and
Yeah.
also Denise, you know, that buy-in from parents, that's always the ultimate goal, right? What we strive to always do with each program.
One of the ideas that we are exploring right now is, I don't know how many of you are familiar with promoters. Well, we want to do APOD promotoras who are going to be promoting our program, and they're parent ambassadors, obviously, same concept, but who we actually train, not just with the curriculum, but specifically how to go out there into the community and be ambassadors of outreach, engagement, and things of that nature. But I'm actually reading with my team a Promotora handbook on how it all started in LA, because we really want to, our goal is to have all of the family resource centers in our county connected in one way or another, who are working with 0 to 5, and then building so that it fits, you know, other children of other ages.
Great. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. We have come to an end. Again, I want to honor, you know, everyone's time. This is a 45-minute workshop. We do plan to have more of these for our network of facilitators and supporting staff in the future. That is something that we are progressively working towards. So thank you again for your time. I want to share that these slides are going to be, this recording and these slides will be available on our website. You'll be receiving that follow-up email from Zoom to show you where to go and access them. So that'll be by Friday, you'll receive them. Thank you again. Thank you, Julie, for this great.
Thank you, everyone.
You shared.
I hope it was helpful.
Yes, it very much was so. Thank you, and thank you everyone for attending today.
And feel free to reach out.
Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Are you staying on, Daisy?